And we're live on a Monday night following Monday Night Raw. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the live stream here, post-show, following Monday Night Raw. Decided to jump the gun a little bit here. We were doing really well on timing. We're seeing the activity already in the chat. So what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the live stream. Nacho Camacho, Sylvia, Kevin already active in the chat. Kevin playing WWE 2K, watching the live. Appreciate it. Appreciate you stopping by, talking WWE with us. Right here on the West Coast, it just hit 11 o'clock. I'm always amazed to see those on the East Coast, our friends from the East Coast, joining the live stream just because it is a little bit later over there. You know, sometimes I'm thinking about doing some live streams that are relatively a little earlier for our friends on the East Coast. I have thought about doing stuff maybe around 5, 6 p.m. just to give a little leeway there for those on the opposite end of the country. But of course, Monday Night Raw comes to a conclusion, a big conclusion. I mean, no pun intended given who was involved in the main event, but the War Raiders are your new tag team champions, finally defeating the Judgment Day, getting rid of those tag titles off of JD McDonough and Finn Balor. I look back at the title reign that was the Judgment Days, and they had two separate title reigns there. You know, different iterations of the group itself. But the way that Finn and JD, I'm a fan of both individuals, love their work on the Judgment Day, but that title reign for me wasn't it. We rarely saw them defend the tag titles. Yeet, San Fran 5. We rarely see them defend the tag titles, and I feel like over time that was by design. We heard Joe Tessitore talk about it on the broadcast and how many people were criticizing the lack of title defenses by the Judgment Day. I think over time they realized we're not really defending these titles. Let's make it a part of the story and have it as a way to gain heat. But nonetheless, the War Raiders, who are worthy of being the new tag champions, are just that. Eric and Ivar, the new set of tag team champions, for the second time, I believe, on the main roster. Obviously, we knew them as the Viking Experience and then the Viking Raiders, but now under the War Raider gimmick, it's great to see them doing well. I'm hoping to see a level of momentum being brought towards the tag team division now. We talked about it on a previous live stream where the Judgment Day, I don't feel like needed the tag titles. It was just an opportunity to get some eyes on those titles. But now that the Judgment Day are no longer champions, we're going to get to see a little bit more variety, a little bit more parity when it comes to the tag title scenes. We have people like Alpha Academy. We have American Made, the LWO, the newly turned New Day, the Wyatt Six, the Final Testament. So many gunning for those tag titles, and now the War Raiders are the ones with the targets on their backs. They're rather big backs, if you will. But I think they're up for the challenge. I think we're due for a good title reign here. Two guys who are more than capable of carrying out solid matches. We've seen the athleticism that is on display when Eric and Ivar are involved in these matches. So I'm just happy that we're now moving forward in the tag team division. Of course, the Judgment Day still not done with Damian Priest, or rather he's not done with them. But Damian Priest cost Finn Balor his tag title as a way to get revenge, some retaliation by the former El Campeón. You see, because Finn Balor cost him his world title at SummerSlam. He cost him his world title opportunity at the Survivor Series. And Finn Balor even got the pinfall, or rather he was the one that was pinned, costing Damian another opportunity at the world title. So Finn Balor finally gets his comeuppance, finally gets a taste of his own medicine, because Damian Priest decided to meddle in his business, and as a result, new champions. The feud is far from over. Damian and Finn Balor, we know that's going to be moving forward. We don't know when it's going to culminate. We don't know where it's going to culminate, but we know eventually we're going to have to come to the end of the road. Shout out to Boyz II Men. Damian Priest on the run of his career. 2024 certainly is a year to remember for Damian Priest, who was the Money in the Bank winner. He was the world champion. a successful heel turn into a baby face and being one of the more popular stars on the roster. Not to mention he had a solid documentary that allowed many of us, myself included, to become more invested in the story that is Damian Priest. So to see him and Finn Balor now due for a match, do battle, hopefully leads to a good blow-off. Because the Judgment Day itself is kind of running its course. We know there's animosity within the Judgment Day. We've seen what it's like between Dominic Mysterio and Finn Balor. And now Liv Morgan and Finn Balor kind of butting heads there. But we talk about running its course. Finn and Damian have been at it since August. And you look across. Liv Morgan, the current reigning, defending Women's World Champion, has had a big beef with Rhea Ripley. And why wouldn't she? You see, because Rhea Ripley cost her some time off of her career, giving her an injury, knocking her off, the main roster there for a moment. She returns, and she returns the favor by essentially injuring Rhea Ripley, forcing her to vacate the Women's World Championship, which she held for a year, and very well could have held the title to this day, even. She even takes Dominic Mysterio. She takes the Judgment Day. So this match, well in the making. We saw it at SummerSlam. We saw a tag match at Bash in Berlin. We saw a shark cage match at Bad Blood. We saw their interactions at War Games. But it's time to end the feud. You'd be hard-pressed to find someone that would not agree that it's time. I love Liv Morgan's work, especially as the world champion. Rhea Ripley goes without saying. A megastar. We're talking mainstream talent. This is the kind of talent you want to have on Netflix and have other people come and just instantly get hooked on the product. But their feud has ran its course. I'm a big fan of saying that, Liv Morgan and Rhea Ripley, two of the best in the division. But it's time to now spread out. It's time to take different paths. It's time to be like Fast and Furious 7 when Paul Walker and Vin Diesel, they were down the same road and eventually they parted ways. It's time. Kevin, Jose, just wanted to say we all appreciate you for your amazing work. Thank you for keeping us entertained. Hey, thank you for giving me the opportunity. You see, because you guys are the ones that have given me the incentive. I look forward to coming out here on the lives, talking about pro wrestling, trying to entertain you, trying to keep you informed, whatever verb you want to use. You guys give me the incentive, so I appreciate you. I'll send that right back your way. Tyler says, hey, Jose, I have the worst day. Shake my head. It's so bad today. My ex-girlfriend and me broke up. Then I got a new girlfriend. Tyler, you waste no time, do you? I'm sorry to hear about your relationship. I'm sorry to hear that it didn't work out between you and your ex-girlfriend. Sometimes, those are the moments where we really decide who we are as individuals. We can take those moments in our life and allow them to drown us and to become just full of negativity and look at the world in a certain way and start to think, why me? Why does this happen to me? Or you can look at it in another perspective and say, you know what? This was supposed to happen for a reason. I don't know what. I don't know why. But the fact is, it's done. So now how can we move? How can we move forward? And for me personally, it looks like you're already moving forward. You're saying you already hopped up on the horse. You're saying you got a new girlfriend already. You don't need me to tell you what to do. You apparently have the playbook. Kevin already saying that you turned heel. Now, whether the case may be who's heel and who's not, don't let it bring you down. Don't let it bring you down. We only got one life. Live it to the fullest, Tyler. Again, I'm sorry to hear what happened between you and your girl. But come on, King, stay up. Kevin says, someone else needs to step up from the women's division. I agree. I am tired of Rhea and Liv. Who else do you think should arise. Well, I mean, I'm a big fan of Io Sky. Io unfortunately didn't get that championship aspiration. She didn't get the goal that she wanted at Saturday night's main event. I would like to see her win the Rumble. That's me and my fandom. That's not me trying to be a prediction or me being analytical. That's me as a fan. I would love to see Io Sky. Big fan of hers. Aside from her, I would like to see Lyra Valkyria rise up. Lyra Valkyria, who's in the running for the Intercontinental Championship in the women's division, who I think should win, has other people in her way. But if you ask me, if she doesn't win the Intercontinental Championship by some miracle, I think she should challenge Liv Morgan. There's already history there. If you remember, Becky Lynch was the individual that Liv Morgan had taken the title away from, and Becky Lynch has a history with Lyra Valkyria. There was even a backstage segment where Lyra and Liv Morgan had an interaction. They kind of teased something there, and we got some matches out of it. We had a little, interaction between the two, but we didn't really get a high-profile matchup out of it. This was around the time where Lyra was still in the King of the Ring tournament, coming fresh off of that, heading into Money in the Bank, a fresh face. I would very much like to see Lyra Valkyria get a turn at the World Championship and have an opportunity to try to take it off of Liv Morgan. Aside from her, Dakota Kai, I would like to see Kairi Sane, who apparently is out now, having gotten attacked by the Pure Fusion Collective. Big Zelina fan, but Zelina kind of already had a moment there with Liv. They had a little short feud there where she got to challenge for the championship, so we'll put her off to the side. Maybe have her have a run at whoever wins the Intercontinental Championship. But if you ask me right now, I would say Lyra. Big fan of Lyra. We're watching the show, and Liv Morgan proclaimed herself as the greatest women's world championship. What's going on, Big Neff Network? Welcome to the live stream. Appreciate you for stopping by. But I do think her saying that she's the greatest world champion, really putting herself on a pedestal here and putting herself over. My brother, as we're watching this, brings an excellent point. He says, do you think they're setting up Charlotte Flair to make a return and challenge Liv Morgan? It's a possibility. Obviously, she's a Raw champion. Raw's going to be on Netflix. You want your main stars here. Does Charlotte make the jump over to Raw and challenge? I don't know. I personally don't want to see it, just because we've seen Charlotte challenge so many times, especially because Charlotte Flair will come in and just challenge out of the blue just because she's Charlotte Flair. I don't want to see it. I want to see something fresh. Lyra Valkyria is my pick. Kevin says, maybe it's time to break up the Judgment Day. It's crazy how Judgment Day started off as an Edge faction. The evolution is crazy. It started off with a heel turn from Edge during the build-up for WrestleMania 38's matchup against AJ Styles. And then to see him be accompanied by Damian Priest and Rhea Ripley, which I thought was a great idea. Two talent who were kind of stuck in the middle, on the brink of being lost in the shuffle. And then we have, the whole Finn Balor coming in and Edge getting kicked out. I do think it's getting pretty close. I think if they do break up, Finn and JD are going to be cool. They've always been cool. Like a mentor, a protege type of deal. Liv is obviously going to have Raquel. Dominic's probably still going to be there. I think Carlito might get lost in it and might just separate himself. But I do think that they probably should end it. I think they probably should end it. I think it's time. We ran its course. I don't know what other stories we could tell with that storyline, especially because Judgment Day is feuding with Damian. Rhea has her business with Liv. After that, when they're done, what's really next? Network says Liv was high. Well, it's well documented. She is a big fan of the ganja. So, I wouldn't put it past her. Dom should take over. That would be very interesting. I kind of want to see this growth from Dominic. Because ever since Dominic debuted in the WWE back in, he technically debuted in 2003. But in ring, in 2020, he's always had to be accompanied by someone. Whether it was his dad, Ray, or whether it's any member of the Judgment Day, Rhea, Damian, Finn, etc. I would like to see him kind of take over this more aggressive tone, become a leader. The Judgment Day with Dom as the leader, is it credible? I mean, right now, maybe not, but you can certainly build up to it. There is a world where Dominic could be the leader of the Judgment Day. I mean, he's already had solid matches against the world champion Gunther. Why not? Why not? Why not have Liv Morgan and Raquel and Carlito turn on Finn? I think, again, JD sticks with Finn. And anoint Dominic Mysterio as, here, this is your group now. Wishful thinking. Judgment Day is WWE's version of the Bullet Club. There's always different leaders. And how ironic, right? Because right now, the current leader is the guy who was the original leader of the Bullet Club. It's a group that, supposedly has no leaders. But we saw Edge as the leader. Then there was a time being where there was no leader. But then there were moments where it felt like it was Rhea. And she was pulling the strings. Then when Damian won the world championship, it was like he was calling the shots. And now, when you listen to Finn, the Judgment Day win. It's a revolving door when it comes to who is the real leader of the Judgment Day. Network says that Dom getting that world championship at some point. I agree. I've said it on the live stream in the past. Don't be surprised if he wins that world title. I even said it while we were watching the show today. Whether it's for 2 weeks or 2 months, Dominic is going to win the world championship. I don't doubt it. The heel factor, this guy is like next level in terms of his reaction. Minimal effort, and he's booed out the building. Dominic Mysterio will be the world champion. And I think the more likely candidate, or the more likely way he will do it, is with Money in the Bank. That would be a great way to capitalize on the level of heat that he has amassed over the course of his very young career. Book it. Dominic will be a world champion before the year 2026 ends. So he has this year and 2026. I'm going to bookmark it right now. That's my hot take. Whether it's brief or not, I think it's going to happen soon. Kevin says, I'd rather have wrestlers today on the ganja. I've heard many wrestlers back then barely made it to their 30s because of the mixture of painkillers, the white powder, and other crazier stuff. RVD walked so today's wrestlers could run. 100%. 100%. I mean, and in the long run, I would rather them have partaken in that than the other substances that we've talked about or that you mentioned. Of the ones that, again, the painkillers, the white snow, those are things that have no place. Well, rather, I guess the painkillers maybe, but to a healthy dosage. Nothing too crazy. But RVD's a perfect example. He's the guy that can still go too. He's well known as the guy who can, yeah, exactly. Network says he can still go. Is he like 60? I don't doubt it. But RVD can still go. So if that's what happens, if that's the effects of the ganja in pro wrestling, I mean, hey, why not? Network agrees. He says yes in 2026. I'm telling you, Dominic Mysterio. I'm pretty sure Dominic also takes place in the ganja too. I don't know. He just strikes me as the type. Monday Night Raw, though. We talk about ganja. How about we talk about a guy who's straight edge? Doesn't do drugs. Doesn't drink. Doesn't, do alcohol. CM Punk and Seth Rollins begin the show with a huge brawl. CM Punk comes out, retorts as a result of what Seth Rollins had said in the previous week, talking about how it's his fault that Seth Rollins isn't a bad student, that he's a bad teacher. He takes responsibility. He takes accountability. He talks about running down Seth Rollins for wanting to be Liberace, for wearing the Elton John sunglasses, but not being those guys. And he says that just because you put on a pair of wrestling boots, you're not CM Punk. Seth Rollins didn't really take too kindly to that. He thought, you know what? I'm going to come out through the crowd. I'm going to get it from their perspective. I've already done it as a pro wrestler. I've done it as a peer. But I want to see what these people actually see when they look at you. And he thought, nah, he's not all that. But Seth Rollins and CM Punk, with an all-out brawl. I mean, they fought in the ring. They fought on, outside at ringside. They fought in the crowd. And the stage is set. The grudge match that we thought was going to happen at WrestleMania 40 and then thought at WrestleMania 41 will happen at the Netflix debut of Monday Night Raw, Los Angeles, January 6th. A monumental matchup, years in the making. The fact that they're having it on the premiere episode of Netflix's Raw, huge. You want to be able to attract so many eyes on this show because we talked about it. There are so many people who haven't seen professional wrestling either in so long or at all. And this Netflix deal is going to open up so many eyes. It's going to bring in so many viewers. So why wouldn't you have some of your biggest stars involved in the biggest matches? Punk versus Rollins. Roman versus Solo in Tribal Combat. We're probably going to crown the inaugural IC champion for the women. We're probably going to have the Women's World Championship between Morgan and Ripley. There's rumors that we're going to be seeing guys like John Cena and The Rock. It's going to be a star-studded affair. Huge. One of the biggest Raws of all time. And you know we'll be here to watch it. And you know we'll be here to react to it. Because we always come following Monday night for a live stream. We share our thoughts. We share our emotions. We talk about our feelings when it comes to what is going on in the wonderful world of professional wrestling. Network says Seth catching a tsunami this summer. Seth, man, the beating that he had taken from Bronson Reed was ridiculous. And shout out to Bronson Reed, who we don't know when he will return as a result of that injury to his foot. Kevin says the Tribal Chief Roman Reigns made me tune back into WWE in a weekly basis. Last time I tuned in on a weekly basis was when Punk was still in the WWE 2014. It cannot go overstated just how significant Roman Reigns' heel turn in 2020 really is to the WWE. It began the heel turn that really reestablished him as a main eventer. It reinvigorated him as a star, and it got us invested in the character, in the performer. The Bloodline saga will go down as one of the greatest, most influential, and significant storylines in the modern era. And that's in large part thanks to Roman Reigns. Network says Braun interrupts Cena. Man, wouldn't that be great if on the first episode of Raw we have a matchup between the two? I don't know if it is, but Braun and Cena, that would be fantastic. Would love to see it. Would love to see it on a big scale. But given that we're only having a year with Cena, I'll be happy to see it at all. Network says no wise man, it don't work. Heyman was the key in rebranding Roman. Great point. That's actually a really good point. We give a lot of credit to Roman Reigns because he is the star. He is the guy who performs. He's the one in the ring. He's the one selling the tickets, holding the championships, being the face. But behind the scenes, Paul Heyman and his presence, not only in front of the camera, but probably behind the camera as well, as one of the great wrestling minds, has a great hand on it. Him and Roman go hand in hand in the production of the Bloodline saga. So big shout out to the Hall of Famer, Paul Heyman. Thank you for mentioning that, Network. Excellent take. Heyman sprinkle his magic and boom. I'm telling you, everything Heyman touches is magic. Look at ECW. The Dangerous Alliance, which we still talk about to this day. The whole Brock run. His run with SmackDown in the SmackDown 6. CM Punk, although I think CM Punk was already magic, but their partnership in 2012 and 2013, great work. The following stuff with Brock, following breaking the streak, the Bloodline. Heyman is one of the greatest contributors, to this business. Has a mind for the business, has a talent for the business. He, along with so many guys, have influenced this business and this, just the sport. But I think Heyman has had quite the significance. Heyman was there with Taker when he signed to WWE. Epic. I mean, come on. What more can you say about him? Paul Heyman's the OG. That's why he's the wise man. Also, Going Back Network says Breaker spears Cena. Dude. And what a shout out for Braun Breaker, huh? To take out John Cena on the debut episode of Raw for Netflix. Talk about making a statement. Braun Breaker is a certified badass. Braun Breaker is another guy who's a world champion in the making. His rise is going to be so cool. He's already one of the coolest guys on the roster. But to be a world champion, to be presented on a consistent basis as the man, that's what it's all about. And they're using this opportunity with the Intercontinental Championship to do so. The IC title was always considered to be that stepping stone. Not to demean it, not to ensure that it's a secondary title. But it was basically the barometer. It was the test to see, could this guy move up to the next level? And that's what they're doing with Braun Breaker. What did y'all think about the Theory versus Cena? So, I was invested in Austin Theory versus John Cena because it screamed parallels. I thought Austin Theory versus Cena had all the potential in the world. John Cena was putting over everybody. Anybody and everybody. So it was no different with Austin Theory. But there was a significant promo leading up to their matchup at WrestleMania 39 that still sticks with me. Where he talks about you're in a lose-lose situation. If you lose to me, John Cena said, if you lose at WrestleMania 39 to me, you lose. You lose the championship, you lose. But then he says, if you beat me at WrestleMania, you still lose. Because Austin Theory would have to go out and basically live up to that expectation that you beat John Cena. You got to go out there and be the man. He was put in a difficult situation. And I think it all stems from the Money in the Bank, cash in. Or even his time with Vince. Vince had positioned him as the next guy. Like how Drew McIntyre was as the chosen one back in 2009. I think that with him and the Money in the Bank briefcase, that really set him back. Was he the right call? Sure. I think so. The way they did it, I don't agree with. Having him enter the matchup and just win the match because Vince McMahon entered. It was a whole debacle. And then having him cash in on the U.S. title, I did not like that. It made him look stupid, honestly. I didn't like that. I mean, you can make the argument that, okay, there was no world champion at that time. It was just the Universal Champion, and he was holding both titles, Roman. So either way, he would have to cash in on Roman. So maybe he wanted the easy way out, but it's then you cash in the U.S. title, and you fail to cash in the U.S. title, only to win it back at the Survivor Series weeks later. What the hell were they doing? They didn't put him in a good spot. And since then, it's been very difficult for him to gather his footing, to reestablish himself. So they placed him in a tag team with Grayson Waller, which worked for a time being. I think they bounce off of each other really well. Their antics and their banter, I find it entertaining. But then over time, it's I need something new. They've been hinting a breakup between the two since the Royal Rumble? Kind of around Elimination Chamber? We're now in December and they're still together. I think Austin Theory could be a solid babyface, though. If you've seen his work with Make-A-Wish and his interaction with fans, I do think that Austin Theory has the potential to be a solid babyface. So whenever the breakup happens, I'm assuming it's him breaking away from Waller. They have a feud. Try to propel him. Give him that level of momentum. Grayson Waller will be fine. He should be a heel forever, a lifer. I don't see Waller ever being a babyface. But Austin Theory still has a shot here. Don't give up on Theory just yet. Taker ripped his pants in Heyman's car on the way to the meeting Vince. The story's on YouTube. Taker talks about it. Man, that Taker podcast is something else. It's a gem. It's a gem to hear so many behind the scenes look of the Undertaker and what's going on there in his career. Baker has a 6-6 and a 1/3% chance of winning. Shout out to Steiner Math. And the fact that he has referenced Steiner Math in the past and that he's not afraid to talk about his uncle and his father, even though they have different names. Braun Breaker will be a future champion. Drew picked up Sammy like a doll baby. Drew is a monster. Drew is an absolute beast when it comes to it. Yeah, I mean, like the matchup with Sammy was great at Saturday night's main event. Love his presentation right now as like the bloodline hunter. Great stuff. They did Corbin dirty. They did do Corbin dirty. And he had a solid push in the beginning. He won the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal back when it meant something on his debut at WrestleMania 32. And they squandered it. He had a U.S. title run. I don't think he won the Intercontinental Championship, did he? Then there was the run as Constable Corbin and King Corbin. That derailed him. And he did lose the briefcase. That's right. He did lose the briefcase. Well, he lost his cash-in as a result of John Cena interfering, which is like John Cena was trying to put people over, but he kind of hurt Theory and Corbin, if you really think about it. But then there was the whole bum Corbin, unhappy Corbin, and that was entertaining. His run with Braun Breaker, I thought was really good as the tag champions. I don't think he's done though. I think Baron Corbin, I think he comes back eventually. I would give Theory a female manager and the Buff Bagwell conceited gimmick put on some nice shades. I think so. But the matter, like, who would be his manager? Or his valet, or whatever the case may be. I think what they've done with him as a heel, I think it's run its course. I think you run him as a babyface. Let's try to get him as a babyface. He can have this confidence to him. He can have, a little sense of arrogance. We've seen with like a guy like LA Knight, who does have this confidence and this air about him. I'm not saying he's going to be the next LA Knight, but we've seen where a cocky guy can be a babyface. I'd like to see him give it a try. He was entertaining with the way Johnny Gargano and Indy and Candice. So there's something there. Drew gonna Claymore, Seth, and Punk. Do you think we'll get a three-way? A triple threat between them? I don't think so. But the interaction between Seth and Drew was certainly something. Because we saw them have an earlier feud back in 2023 for the World Championship. Obviously, they had a match at WrestleMania 40. But now it's like, could we potentially see a partnership for their shared disgust, really, for CM Punk and the Bloodline? That's something to keep an eye on. Network suggests find a blonde with a good smile. A spray bottle like Rick Martel. Rick Martel's underrated. Rick Martel's another guy who could go in the ring, but he didn't really have the backing of the company to the point where he was presented as a main eventer. But Rick the Model Martel, who isn't in the Hall of Fame either, but I think you can make a consideration. With all due respect, if a guy like Coco Beware can be in there, Rick Martel could be. Rick versus Razor for the IC title. Shout out to the New Generation era. Good call out there by Network. I will say though, this episode of Raw went fairly quickly. I think there was like 3 matches, or at least it felt like it. We had the IC title, we had the tag title, we had the triple threat match that saw Zoe Stark advance, moving forward in the tournament. And aside from that, we had a lot of promos. The Seth Rollins and CM Punk stuff, Judgment Day getting stuff, Liv Morgan, of course. We saw advancements in the New Day story, who they're not even allowed to be in the locker room. Rey Mysterio, the locker room leader, apparently would not allow them. He thought, it's probably best that you guys find another place to get dressed. And get dressed for what? They didn't even wrestle a match. They basically enjoyed catering. Kevin says, I honestly love the way the new IC title looks. It's a minor detail. It's a minor change. But it's so good. The way it originally had looked, during the Gunther reign, where it was basically just all black. And obviously gold, But to add that little hint of blue really makes a difference. It gives me the feeling, of course, of like the Attitude Era Intercontinental Championship that was held by guys like RVD, Chris Jericho, Edge, Christian. So many guys held that championship. But I really think it's an improvement. And like I said, it's crazy that a small detail, like adding a hint of blue, really pulls it together. It's a great looking championship. It was okay to begin with. It wasn't a bad looking title. But for me, it kind of looked a little bland. And now, it looks great. Kevin says it looks like it means more. It really has. It carries a level of prestige. Sanfran5 says, I called it earlier in the year that WWE was going to add color to the championship. That he did. He did. And it was a good call. It just needed championship. And they never really explained it. The way I took it was that Jey Uso wins the championship. At the time, he's wearing all his Yeet gear. It's all blue. So he throws on a splash of blue on the title. And basically, that was the epitome of his title reign as champion. He held it for about 4 weeks. And his biggest contribution was a couple of solid matches as champion. But ultimately added blue to the title. Great call there by Sanfran5. And now the IC title, I think it looks great on Braun. He looks like a great champion. Solid. In the ring. On the mic. The crowd is getting really behind him. But the IC title is great. And now, we're talking about titles. I'm really hoping that Kevin Owens is going to parade around with the Winged Eagle Championship. Declaring himself as the real champion. We need more unique titles. Unfortunately, the way the title designs go on nowadays is off of marketability. And just selling toys, basically. Selling replicas like the one behind me. Which is why they all look the same. But also branding. Because whenever like a sports team wins championships, what do? They hand out a championship, the big WWE logo, and on the side plates is whatever team had won the title. So in terms of marketing and branding, it's smart. But in terms of visual optics, the titles need to be revamped. I would like to see more unique title designs. Do you think Kevin Owens will show next time saying he's the real champion with the Winged Eagle belt while Cody is out because of the... That's awesome. That's awesome. We just touched on it. So you and I are thinking the same thing. We're on the same page. But yeah, I hope so. I really do. Because it would add something different. It's interesting because we kind of saw it with CM Punk and AEW, the whole Real World Championship. But to see it on this stage, and with the character work of Kevin Owens, I would very much love to see that. Kevin Owens putting on some of the best work, promo-wise. But absolutely. I would love to see that. Just because it's also just a good-looking title. Like, when they showed that on TV for Saturday night, it just looked right. It just felt right. It felt natural. So my hope, and I'm pretty sure I shared this on another live stream or whether it was the podcast episode, but have him come out with the championship declaring, okay, I'm the real champion. Then eventually Cody's going to come back. They're going to have a match. Have a ladder match. And the winner is the legit, the real WWE champion. We saw them have a matchup already at Bash in Berlin. Obviously, there was a Saturday night's main event match. We can't do a third one without a stipulation. You got to add something. You got to add a little flavor to the matchup to end the trilogy. And what better way to capitalize on having two championships than to hang them above the ring and have the two climb the ladder to win and declare themselves the undisputed WWE champion. Great minds think alike, though. You did bring up it right as I was talking about it. Salvi did bring it up, so awesome. Great comments in the chat, guys. A lot of great stuff talking about here. Whether it's Austin Theory, the titles, Monday Night Raw. What were your guys' thoughts on the War Raiders and winning the championship? We talked about the Judgment Day and how it's basically a common consensus that their days are numbered as a group. But what do you guys think about the War Raiders winning the tag titles? Are you guys fans of the War Raiders? Do you think it was time to have the War Raiders win the championship? Or would you have been happy with anybody taking the titles away from Finn and JD? For those of us joining the chat, my name is Jose Ramos Jr. Welcome to our live stream talking about pro wrestling, specifically Monday Night Raw. The War Raiders are the new champions. CM Punk and Seth Rollins are set to do battle on the debut episode of Netflix's Raw. If you have any questions or comments and are new to the channel, new to the stream, go ahead and place them down below in the chat, and we'll be sure to acknowledge them here on the video. Kevin says, I love Punk, but I got Rollins over Punk, not gonna lie. Punk has a better body of work, but Punk wishes he could have the moveset of Rollins. CM Punk is a throwback. CM Punk, to me, is very much like the people he looked up to. He talks a lot about a guy like Terry Funk, Harley Race, who had lengthy pro wrestling careers. Not because, they were over the hill, although some people will say that about Terry Funk, but because they wrestled a style that allowed them to have a prolonged career. Now, granted, Terry Funk did wrestle in ECW, had his fair share of hardcore matches, but the longevity that those three guys have in common is why CM Punk, I think, is such revered by pro wrestling fans alike, is because he's coming at it from a point that less is more. Punk doesn't have to do these crazy angles, doesn't have to do these crazy move sets to remain over with the crowd. I think you're valid in preferring Seth over Punk, but I do think that when you're CM Punk, you're basically a made man. I don't want to make it sound like it's okay to kind of rest on your laurels and just go with the flow. But when CM Punk goes, as we've seen in the Hell in a Cell match, he can go. Now, in terms of body of work, yes, I think Punk has him beat, but Seth Rollins is one of the best performers of this generation. It's important to give him his flowers while we still can. That's why I'm so hyped for this matchup. It's the coming together of a storyline that's a decade, well over a decade in the making. Who wins? I agree. So Salvi in the chat says, I thought Punk and Rollins would in WrestleMania. I'm 100% with you. I'm with you. I honestly thought that CM Punk and Seth Rollins was going to be saved for WrestleMania, because it was supposed to happen at WrestleMania 40. We knew this. But because of the injury that CM Punk sustained, it sidelined him and everything got pushed back. And for sure, it's such a feud that is warranted. But we're going to be seeing it on the debut episode of Monday Night Raw on Netflix. And honestly, I'm okay with it. Because I trust Triple H. I trust the creative process and where they're going with it. Kevin says, I've noticed that wrestlers who don't have a Batista-like physique often rely more on storytelling and technical wrestling skills to stand out. Guys like Wyatt, Punk, and Bryan aren't overly muscular, but excel through their creativity and in-ring ability. The rivalry is money. I agree 100%. And I think that's why I've always kind of gravitated towards that kind of a performer. Because there was so much more than a cool move set. Don't get me wrong, I'm a big fan. Like, for example, you said Batista. I'm a big fan of all type of styles in pro wrestling. I can do hardcore wrestling, the technical side of wrestling, powerhouse wrestling. But for me, the real soft spot for me is technical wrestling. Guys like Bray Wyatt, CM Punk, Daniel Bryan, Kurt Angle, Bret Hart, because they could, Eddie Guerrero, they could do a little bit of everything. You had the physical capabilities to have solid matchups with a wide array of talent. And then you also had the benefit of enjoying a solid storyline. Their work in terms of storytelling was off the charts. Again, and that goes to longevity. So I'm with you there. The rivalry is money. By the way, I would much rather choose one of those matches over anything, personally. I do enjoy a good old monster match. I mean, look at Bronson Reed and Braun Strowman. But I really enjoy the technical side of pro wrestling and the ring psychology. I didn't even talk about Shawn. Shawn Michaels is another one. The rivalry is money. The rivalry is certainly money. That's why they're having it on this episode of Raw. Because I knew no matter where it happens, once you pull the trigger, it's instant success. We threw up a poll in the chat here for CM Punk versus Seth Rollins. I just wanted to gauge the climate of professional wrestling fans. I wanted to see what you guys thought, here in the J area. Who's your preferred talent, CM Punk or Seth Rollins? Me personally, you guys know I'm a CM Punk guy. I've made it well known. I do like Seth Rollins, but I'm a big CM Punk guy. So that's why we threw it in the chat here. I want to get a little more interactive and allow this as an opportunity to hear from you guys. Throw up more polls. I want Seth to win. I remember it like yesterday when he was in the Authority. I was in middle school, like 6th grade. Now I'm 21. Time flies. Isn't that crazy? I remember when NXT had been the competition show that we saw, with Daniel Bryan and Wade Barrett and obviously everybody. And I remember there was a time being in 2012, where I was getting more involved with the internet side of pro wrestling and keeping up with like the dirt sheets and keeping up with what was going on for, just pro wrestling. And seeing the results of like this revamped version of NXT, it's like it's not the game show no more. It's basically a developmental program. And so I was watching that tournament to crown the inaugural NXT champion, which the finals were Seth Rollins and Jinder Mahal. That was in 2012. I was 14. And now I'm about to turn 27 next year. So to see him from then in NXT to being a member of the Shield, to being a member of the Authority, to winning the World Championship and the Rumble and then the Visionary, the Revolutionary, the evolution of Seth Rollins is fantastic. Seth also has a point when he says Punk abandoned the WWE. It certainly felt like that for fans like us who loved Punk. And that's why his feud is so good. Because there's levels to it. Shout out to Sanfran5 who voted for Colt Cabana. It's so good because there's realism. Fans of CM Punk were devoted followers to him. They cheered him all the time. Even when he was gone, they still cheered for him. And so for guys like Seth Rollins and for fans alike, me personally, I never felt like he abandoned them because I got it. I understood his decision. But there is that sense of abandonment where it's like you left the WWE. And the way he spoke about management, he spoke about the company with such vitriol, hatred. For a guy like Seth Rollins, who has been very pro WWE, he's a company guy. That makes you feel a type of way. So he does have a point. He is valid in his feelings of saying that you abandoned us. You betrayed us. How did you feel? How did you feel like when Punk went over to the UFC? I was very skeptical about it because not everybody can make the jump like a Brock Lesnar, or just MMA in general, like Bobby Lashley and Batista, who all did MMA for a time being there. His his performance in the octagon surely is forgettable, rather maybe unforgettable just by how bad it was. It was bad, and physically too. The way he dropped weight, he was so like he seemed malnourished. Because Punk, I mean, we know Punk is not the biggest guy. We know he's not a hulking figure. But when he cut weight, he just seems so thin, man. He did suffer those losses, and I mean, it was what it was, and he's talked about it. It's noted that at the end of the day, he gave it a go. He gave it a try. He recognized maybe it's not for me, and he moved on. He pivoted. He became a commentator, which I think he's well suited for. I don't want to see Punk get hurt. I don't want to see him have the inability to live a healthy lifestyle following his combat sports career. So he's way better at commentary, and a great way to ensure longevity. Punk's disdain towards Ryback is hilarious. Dude, my brother and I, we always talk about the one segment in the Colt Cabana podcast where they're talking about Ryback and how he threw Punk, trying to throw him onto a table, but basically misses him and rotates his hip onto the table side. And Punk telling him, "You gotta tell me you're doing this on purpose." He said, "Either," and I'm gonna change it a little bit, not say it verbatim, but he said, "Either you're dumb as hell or you suck." And Ryback, I'm dumb as hell. And it's like Ryback is a joke. But the disdain towards Ryback is legendary. It's great stuff. That podcast with Colt Cabana, oh man, I listened to that thing on repeat when it came out. And every now and then I check it out again just to see how it ages. What about when CM Punk came back on WWE Backstage? Dude, what a time. What a time when WWE had Backstage, that one show where it was like Renee Paquette, Renee Young, for those who remember her on WWE, Samoa Joe, Adam Cole, Paige here. They were all there. And CM Punk was revealed as a special guest who was going to make an appearance every now and then. And the point was he was going to be unfiltered. He was going to provide his take on the WWE's programming in an unfiltered manner. And I thought, well, this is an opportunity to see him have a doorway, a way in back into pro wrestling. I thought for sure, okay, there's a chance. There's still a chance here. But it didn't go through. He joined AEW. So I did think there was a better shot of him joining. But obviously we all tuned in for WWE Backstage to see him criticize the program. And it didn't work. The show ended up getting canceled. It got canned. Probably for the better. UFC making him a main event card. First match was just a pure money grab from Dana White, capitalizing off Punk's name. It's a business. I get it. But again, for a guy who doesn't have as much experience as other guys who have main evented or to make money off of, it's a bad call. But you live and you learn, whether you're Punk or Dana White. I think ultimately it worked out for everybody. Dana White and the UFC are doing well under TKO. And then CM Punk is well on his way to revitalizing his career in the long run and solidifying himself as one of the greatest to ever do it. Why do you think the New Day not show up in the ring tonight, especially since Kofi? That's a really good point, actually. He's from Boston, and they didn't have him out there. Maybe. So here's my thing. It's noted that the episode of Monday Night Raw for next week is going to be taped. Today was a double taping, so next week's Raw will not be live. I think we're going to save them for next week. That's where they're going to appear. And maybe they didn't risk having Kofi in the audience or in front of the audience in Boston out of fear that maybe some people would cheer. Pro wrestling fans are known to be smart marks and sometimes can be a little contrarian. They want to do the opposite of what they're supposed to do. So maybe it was out of fear, or rather hesitancy, of presenting him in front of his hometown because maybe they cheer him. I think that's why they didn't do it. You should do a reaction for MTV Wrestling Society X. Is that even monetized? Could I get copyrighted or blocked for that? But I certainly would be interested in doing it. Maybe I have you as a guest and we can react to it. Punk or Daniel Bryan? I'm Punk. I'm a Punk fan. He's my second favorite wrestler of all time. But Daniel Bryan by no means should not be up for consideration. For me, Daniel Bryan is so good in the ring. He's a top tier talent. I might say it often, but he really is one of the best of this generation. Daniel Bryan, Bryan Danielson, his influence on this style of pro wrestling is certainly felt because of his contributions to like Ring of Honor back in the mid and early 2000s. But I think Daniel Bryan is really good. He's great. But Punk is great and has the personality. I'm not saying Bryan has no personality, but I think Punk he's just well-rounded everywhere. You know, whether it's on the mic, in the ring, babyface, heel. I think he's a better promo than Bryan. Now, when Bryan really gets into it, and he's emotional, and he's really into his story, and you can get that emotional investment in him, it's tough to top Bryan. But I think Punk just comes off so effortlessly when he talks on the mic. What does it mean to be a mark? First heard the term from MJF. Maybe you should do a YouTube video of wrestling terminology. That's a great idea. I never thought about that. Because for me, when I like to use those terminologies, those terms, but I do it in a way where I casually throw them in because I want to keep everyone on even playing field. I don't want to talk about words that maybe some people don't know and like present it as like a condescending or demeaning way. Rather, I'm going to present it in a way where like, hey, these are common words that we all know or should know. And if you don't know, then I'll be sure to, include them and talk about them. Sorry, I had to put my charger on. But that's something I would definitely be interested in. I'm going to make that a note, and that'd be cool. I would love to do that. What does it mean to be a mark, though? From my understanding, because I think people have different interpretations of the word mark. Mark is someone, okay, so I say like a smart mark. Mark is someone who thinks they're in the know. Like I'm a mark. I'm a mark for this business because I'm keeping up with like all the dirt sheets. I'm keeping up with the stuff on TV and the stuff off TV. It's basically like a stan, who Stan being like the Eminem song, who is like he's kind of in over his head when it comes to the business, which is where the phrase stan came from. The commonly used now where it's referring to fandom. But yeah, like a mark. It can be used as like a condescending type of term too, where we're just referring to internet fans as, oh, they're all marks. Salve says, I believe it was Kevin or Scott said that the biggest marks are the wrestlers. That is true. I have actually heard this. That's because they buy their own stuff. They buy their own hype. That they're the biggest marks are the wrestlers. I have heard that. So you're saying you have an unhealthy obsession with wrestling. I think it's up for debate. I think so. And I'm okay with saying that. Because I've been following it like my whole life. So yeah, I'm not, if someone were to tell me, oh, you have an obsession, yeah, I'm not going to disagree. But I don't know about unhealthy. I know when to turn it on and turn it off, because there are some people who just can't. They can't let it go. Every conversation has to be about it. Real quick to answer Kevin here. I never found the appeal of Daniel Bryan. I'll die on this hill alone. Punk is better in my opinion. I agree. I get the appeal from Daniel Bryan from a traditional wrestling standpoint and just in ring. But if we're talking overall, Punk. And I feel like that's a good crossroads. It's like, okay, when it comes to wrestling, you're either a Punk or a Bryan guy. You can like both, but there's always one you prefer over the other. Would Jack Perry be a mark? Jack Perry could be considered a mark, especially when it comes to real glass. I mean, obviously the whole Crimea River stuff. But yeah, I think Jack Perry would be considered a mark. I think in today's day and age, a lot of people who throw criticisms at like the elite, specifically like the Young Bucks and Hangman Page, I think guys like Scott Hall and Kevin Nash would have considered them marks. They would definitely qualify as those wrestlers who are deemed marks. 19 votes in, and the chat is preferring Seth Rollins over CM Punk. Very interesting. Honestly, I did not anticipate it to be quite the landslide. I thought it would be a lot closer, honestly, like 60-40, but we're looking at nearly 70-30. 19 votes in, Seth Rollins is winning the vote. We're just like Star Wars, Harry Potter, anime fans, or sports fans. Honestly, yeah. I honestly think so. But it's like there's this stigma about pro wrestling that has such negativity. Grown men liking Star Wars or Marvel, Harry Potter, sports fans, I don't think they receive as much negativity or negative feedback as much as like pro wrestling fans. And the one thing that, oh man, I know you guys can probably agree. Well, you know it's fake, right? Or like, oh, you're watching two grown men fight. And it's like, yeah. You can make the same argument for like the Avengers. Because it's not real. And it's grown men fighting characters and costumes. And my biggest thing was always like, oh, you know it's fake, right? But it's like, yeah. But that changed how you watch TV or a movie? I never got it. It's never really bothered me to the point where I'm going to, get really upset. But it bothers me to a point I'm like, do you hear yourself? Like, I'm not going to watch Star Wars and a guy next to me who's like super into Star Wars. I love Star Wars, by the way. Not, more so the original trilogy. But I'm not going to trash the guy next to me and be like, well, he's not really his dad. They're just acting. That doesn't make sense. I don't get why people are like that. Is there anyone you'd like to get a last championship run? For example, I would love AJ to get a final WWE push. Honestly, at this moment, I kind of want to see Cena break the record. I want to see him break that record for Ric Flair. I just think it'd be super cool. I think it'd be, first of all, it would be monumental, historic. To see John Cena, a 17-time world champion, break the illustrious Ric Flair's record, the unofficial record. It's technically 16, but if you really dive into it, I think the number's somewhere like 18. It just depends on what you're looking at. But I do think John Cena, if not him, I know it would be John Cena, because either have him win the world championship and be 17 time, or an Intercontinental title to give him the Grand Slam. Shout out to Vince McMahon. He made wrestling, which was a carnival gig in the beginning, to a worldwide form of entertainment. I agree. I think because of the recent revelation of what happened, and it's tough to talk about because it's still it's a controversial topic, but the whole Vince McMahon allegations, say what you want about the guy, I personally despise him. I'm not a fan of Vince for his personal reasons, but in terms of the business, like Hulk Hogan, you can't deny their contributions. You can't deny and say like, oh, it would have been the same without him. No, it wouldn't. For all his faults and all his negative, characteristics, Vince McMahon and what he did with pro wrestling is so huge. I think, again, for all intents and purposes, you don't have to like the guy, but what he was able to do for the business is, you can't argue it. Who should be the record against? Or who should he beat for the record? I don't want it to be Gunther, but he's the world champion at the moment. Some people have said, what about Cody? Hear me out. Cody doesn't lose to Kevin, obviously, that didn't happen. But Cody loses to Randy, his mentor, the Legend Killer. And then that leads into the final ever matchup between Cena and Randy. So, two legends going at battle for the last time. Cena beats Randy, gets the record, beats his longtime foe, and then somewhere down the line puts over Cody. And solidifies him as, okay, this is your company, you're the face. Puts him over clean. That's a possibility. That's what I'm going to answer now. I think he beats Randy for the championship. When people tell me anything, or when people tell me wrestling's fake, I just show them the Mankind falling off the cage, Shane getting his nuts electrocuted, or talk about Matt Hardy and Edge feud. I mean, the Mankind matchup with The Undertaker is certainly a great one. I think another one to say is like, it sucks, but it's like Owen Hart. He actually died. And it's like there are certain moments in wrestling history where time stopped because it got real. Stone Cold Steve Austin breaking his neck. There are moments there where it's like it's undisputed. But people will still have their preconceived notions, and you can't change people's minds. Good pick, Cena breaking the record. Appreciate it, Kevin. While I do think the accusations of Vince are foul, agreed, I think it's all a money grab. The victims, mostly women, knew exactly what they were getting themselves into. And I mean, that's people are allowed to voice their opinions. That's the First Amendment, freedom of speech. But the fact is, even if it is a money grab, even if it is a money grab, it does not take away what still happened. I can't forgive. Whether or not the accusations are credible or not. But you guys know I've said it time and time again, where there's smoke, there is fire. It's not a coincidence that he's in line with so many accusations. It is what it is, right? Kevin says, I'd want Randy versus Cena one last time. I'd also want Orton versus Rhodes too. And I think we can get that. If Cody versus The Rock doesn't happen at Mania, I think that leaves the door open for Randy versus Cody. Randy wins. We lead into Randy versus Cena, depending how long Orton's title reign is, of course. But you have it lead into Cena versus Orton, and you get both matches. And I think Cena puts Cody over for the championship. Is it perfect booking? No. But again, it's just off the top of my head, and I would like to see it. Once again, welcome everybody to the chat. If you're new to the live stream, we're talking pro wrestling here. We're talking about specifically Cena breaking the record, a possible Randy final match. Also recapping what happened on Monday Night Raw. If you're new to the channel, my name is Ramos Jr. Where we talk pro wrestling here. It's a channel by a WWE fan for WWE fans, all about WWE and AEW and TNA occasionally, but mostly predominantly the WWE. Go ahead and voice your comments, your concerns, your questions in the chat, and we'll be sure to talk about them here on the live. 20 votes in, 25 minutes, and it seems that Seth Rollins is going to get the win here for who the people prefer, Punk and Rollins. I think we're going to keep it up for a few more minutes here just to keep it at the even 30-minute mark. But it's looking like Seth Rollins is the consensus favorite here in the J area, which really surprised me. I didn't think it was going to be much of a landslide here. I thought it would have been closer, especially me being a Punk guy. But that's what we're working with here. Kevin also says, I want Sheamus to win the IC title even though he doesn't need it. Dude, you and I, we're here. We're here. Sheamus, does he need it? No, he doesn't need it. But man, it would be so nice. A great treat for Sheamus, who has had quite the career. I did not anticipate that Sheamus would have quite the career he did when he debuted on ECW back in 2009. I need him to win that IC title to cap off a fantastic career. WWE champion, world champion, US champion, tag champion, King of the Ring, Money in the Bank, Royal Rumble winner, Triple Crown, banger after banger. He's done everything but win the IC title. Give the man the IC title. Even if it's brief, the moment would be fantastic. WrestleMania? Maybe. That's a moment. That's a WrestleMania moment if I've ever seen one. But no matter where it happens, the crowd's going to go nuts. The crowd will lose their minds. Just to do some quick housekeeping here in regards to the channel, keep an eye out for other live streams throughout the week. We're going to be continuing our J Area Awards. Our next award up will be tomorrow. We're going to be talking about Female Wrestler of the Year. We'll be talking about some of the candidates, some of the nominees that should be included. And then we'll open up the voting poll to the public and have you guys decide who you think was the top women's star in WWE in the year 2024. Other than that, we will also have live streams following Friday Night SmackDown. I'm looking to doing more live streams. I want to be interactive with you guys, include you guys in the conversation. We had the J Area Wrestling Podcast published, uploaded earlier today, or rather early Monday. And we have clips throughout the week for those who haven't been able to watch the full episode, or also as a way to get new viewers onto the channel and kind of encourage them to keep up to date with the product and keep up to date with the programming that we have here on YouTube. Kevin says, I love the list of Jericho, calling AJ Styles' hairstyle a soccer mom hairstyle. Jericho has always been so innovative. I know he gets a lot of flack nowadays in AEW, but because of what's going on with the status of All Elite Wrestling, it's very tough to support Chris Jericho and the whole learning tree. But I have to give him credit for always being able to reinvent himself and reinvigorate and re-energize his career. Jericho, talented on the mic. Again, a GOAT. Sheamus versus Drew needs to happen, or Sheamus versus Gunther. Sheamus versus Gunther versus the World Championship, down. Sheamus versus Drew for the IC title, down. I don't know when and where, but those would be fantastic. He did face Gunther already at Clash at the Castle 2022, but I certainly would love to see it on the main event scene. What's going on, Mohammed? Welcome to the live stream. Appreciate the comment in the chat here. He says, happy late on a late Monday night. Hope you are doing well, man, as well as your health, and same with everyone here in the live chat. Appreciate that, Mohammed. Thank you for taking the time to comment down below in the chat and taking time out of your night to join us here on a live stream on a Monday night / I guess Tuesday morning now. So appreciate you for joining us here today. Jose, were you a SmackDown person growing up or Raw? SmackDown, 100%. Love the question. Growing up, my family, we watched SmackDown religiously. every Thursday night on UPN, because that's where they were on Thursday nights. We didn't have, at the time it was Spike. We didn't have Spike. It wasn't until 2005 in the summer, the lead up to SummerSlam 2005, was when we got access to Raw. So I watched SmackDown and had to rely on the Raw Rebound, it was called. We had to rely on the Raw Rebound to keep up to date with what's going on Monday Night Raw. Big SmackDown guy, loved The Undertaker, John Cena, Ray, Kurt Angle, Eddie Guerrero. Hated JBL. I thought he was a great heel. Looking back, I hated JBL. Couldn't stand him. And I grew up now recognizing the business and understanding the inner workings. And JBL is one of the greatest heels of all time. Because he was one of those guys where it was like there's heels like Triple H where it's like, hey, he's kind of cool. You know, I dig Triple H. Even though he's a bad guy, I should be booing him. He's pretty cool. JBL was one of those guys where I'm like, I hate him. I don't care. I can't stand him. So big ups to JBL. SmackDown was my jam. Every Thursday was on it. And then when it was on Fridays, was on it. Kevin says, I was mostly a SmackDown kid. Friday nights just hit different, you know. I had vivid memories of 2011 SmackDown with Christian as world champion for one day, and then 2011 was actually my favorite version of Randy. Mohammed has a quick question. Go ahead. Sound off. That's what the chat's for. Would love to hear your input or your questions. Kevin talks about SmackDown growing up. That was me too in the year 2004 and 2005. I remember vividly, you know, the run with John Cena from the Doctor of Thugonomics, Ray versus Eddie. That was such a cool time. I know 2005 is kind of like a hit or miss for some pro wrestling fans, but for me, that was like the golden age for me because it was when my memories really started to form, and why I really fell in love with pro wrestling was because of SmackDown in 2004 to 2005. But 2011 was an interesting time too. Was a big fan of Christian and his world championship run. I thought it was a shame that it only lasted for a short period there. The Big Six on SmackDown by Paul Heyman was money. Kurt Angle, Chris Benoit, the Guerreros, Edge, and Rey Mysterio. You could always count on those guys to deliver. Loved it. And there was always like a revolving door of like having a tag team match or having a singles match that involved them. But regardless of who was involved, always money. Loved the Guerreros. Loved Benoit, Angle, Edge, Ray. Could not say any bad things about them. In the ring. Obviously because the whole Benoit thing. So I want to make that clear. In the ring. Eddie on SmackDown was fire. Yes. Man, I miss Eddie. Finding out when he passed away was so tough. He was one of my favorites growing up. But Eddie. Go. Eddie's number 3 for me. Number 1, Shawn. Number 2 is CM Punk. Number 3 is Eddie. Any reason what happened to Raw Talk? And when it will come back? If you're referencing Raw Talk like on Peacock, which I believe is hosted by Sam Roberts, I believe it's still a thing. I do think that it's still a thing, Raw Talk on the network or on Peacock. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it's got canceled or anything. What do you think about the new Raw logo for Netflix? I'm okay with it. It's very minimalistic, very simple, which I think is the way to go. There was like a concept art or a rumored logo that they were including on the internet, and I wasn't a fan of that. This one, I'm cool with. I like it. The new SmackDown logo is terrible. I'm tired of how people elude modernism as simplicity. What I literally just said. Literally what I just said. That's hilarious, Kevin. It's because I'm a simple guy. If you asked me, the SmackDown logo, it's hit or miss. At first, I was like, oh, okay, you know, I would prefer just to do like a modern take on like the Ruthless Aggression era SmackDown 2002, which I guess you can argue is kind of what they're going for, but I could hate it, but I don't. But I think it's hilarious how you said, I'm tired of how people elude modernism to simplicity. I literally said that. That's hilarious. Have you ever considered on what matches you recommend to someone getting into wrestling for the first time? Yes, I have. I think I mentioned it on a previous stream that if I had to narrow it down to three, it would be Hell in a Cell, 98, of course, Mankind versus The Undertaker. That for sure. I think another one would be Eddie versus Ray Halloween Havoc. And the third one was TLC 2, WrestleMania 17. Those are the three I would do. One, because there's a story for Hell in a Cell. Or excuse me, Halloween Havoc. Hell in a Cell was like just violence, and that's the way you hook people into it. And same thing with WrestleMania 17. People want that. If I had to amend it and add more, Austin versus Bret Hart at WrestleMania 13, I think is a great one to also include. Maybe Hulk and Andre, because of how huge it was for WrestleMania 3 on the Slam, and getting a feel for like the older stuff. I think it's important to include a lot of the older stuff. But yeah, that's awesome. Awesome question there. Mohammed says, and also Megan Morant, I noticed it was not airing anymore. I haven't. I don't watch Raw Talk, I will say. I do listen to the Not Sam, wrestling podcasts. And I know Megan Morant pops on there with Sam Roberts every now and then. I'm curious, what region of the world are we on, Mohammed? Or what country are we in? Because I know the network is available outside of the United States, or it was at least. But being that Netflix is acquiring the WWE, the network is like no more. So maybe they're gonna stop doing it. I can't say. I think right now, bear with me, if I look on my phone, I'm fairly confident that Raw Talk is still on. Like, at least for us. It's very rude of me to be on my phone while talking to you guys, but I see it. Raw Talk is here, on Peacock under the WWE tab. Raw Talk is still available, so not sure what you're not seeing, but Raw Talk is still available on Peacock. Do you remember the one match Eddie had against JBL? It seemed like he fainted and was having a seizure in the middle of the match. Dude, so that's funny. Because I recently had that conversation with my brother about the matchup. And I knew it was following Judgment Day 04. When like he had suffered a lot of blood loss during that matchup. And he had that matchup, like you said, he fainted. I didn't remember it. And so my brother and I rewatched it, and he showed me, and I was like, wow, I actually don't remember this. So I rewatched it recently, and it's crazy. I can't believe I don't remember it. For new wrestling fans, I'd recommend any Brock Lesnar match so they can put some respect on the business. What Brock Lesnar match? Him versus Punk is one of my favorites for Brock. I also liked his match against AJ and Bryan. But if it's like the earlier stuff, him against Kurt Angle at WrestleMania 19 is certainly one that I would do, especially given how it ends with the shooting star press and the neck injury, him not being able to remember the ending. Brock versus Kurt Angle at WrestleMania 19 is a great matchup. Salvi says, Eddie versus Punk at an indie show was great. I don't know if this is true or not. Again, it's all reports and rumors, so we can't really rely on it. But I read somewhere that Eddie Guerrero was intended to be the inaugural Ring of Honor champion, but eventually signed or re-signed with the WWE. Like, Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that's true or not. But Eddie Guerrero being the inaugural Ring of Honor champion is crazy. If that was actually a thing, I don't know if that's factual. That's just something I've heard. A lot of great participation in the chat today. We closed our poll with 21 votes. I'm sure you guys saw the results. 61% side with Seth Rollins as the individual they prefer. CM Punk only with 38%. Not a good win for CM Punk, but maybe his fortunes will change come January 6th on the first edition of Netflix's Monday Night Raw. I really enjoy having the option here to start polls and Q&As with you guys. I think that's a super cool feature that we have here on YouTube. That's why I prefer streaming on YouTube. Plus, it's just more accessible. It's easier for me. And timing. Again, we're going to reset here. For those who are new to the chat, for new to the live stream, my name is Jose Ramos Jr. We talk pro wrestling here on a Monday night. We do live streams occasionally. Make sure you subscribe to keep up to date with all the pro wrestling content that is produced on this channel. We're talking Monday Night Raw as well as our memories growing up as wrestling fans. Mohammed says, well, hopefully CM Punk will stay injury free. I mean, hey, you can't. I hope you don't know. I don't know if you hear it, but I'm knocking on wood. I don't wish injury on anybody, but certainly CM Punk, who's had a history of it in recent times. Man, as long as they're smart about his usage. Brock Lesnar's return in 2012 was crazy because they made him like the Thanos after fighting in the UFC. He had me putting people in the he had me putting people in the Kimura lock in school. I got in trouble because the kid cried after. That's hilarious. Brock Lesnar, fresh off the UFC, I think was so much better than the original run. Shout out to Extreme Rules. That's a great pick. But first of all, when it comes to the Extreme Rules match, I don't agree having Cena win. In retrospect, that makes no sense. You have Brock Lesnar return, make a huge return, attacking Cena, just to have Cena beat him in the first match. And then, if you remember, Cena cuts a promo and kind of makes it sound like he's going to be leaving for a while. He doesn't. I don't get that. Why did they have Cena beat Lesnar in his return match? It makes no sense to me. And they wonder why we booed Cena for so long. I love Cena. Like, now I'm a fan. But there was a time where I was like, the way they booked him. They wonder why people booed him. It's because of pushing him over Brock, who just came back from the UFC as a legitimate force. But that's a good pick, though. For Extreme Rules 2012, Chicago, Illinois, Brock versus Cena, which was the main event. You put people in the Kimura lock, and they cried. I can't get over that. Kevin was low-key a menace, bro. Kevin was low-key a menace. But shout out to Kevin for sharing his stories. Appreciate that. I remember we had a trampoline in the backyard, my brother and I. We had our little matches. Whether it was in the trampoline or whether we had them indoors, where we would put like mattresses and pillows and basically a bunch of blankets on the ground to serve as the mat. I'm sure he remembers that. We even had a replica hardcore championship, a toy replica, I will say. And we had a hardcore championship, and we would try to... Sorry, I was reading the chat there for a moment. I'll get to those right now. We would try to have a hardcore championship, and basically at any time of the day, pin one another to crown a hardcore champion. Mohammed says, in which Brock Lesnar putting Cena over? It should have been Extreme Rules 2012. They eventually did it in SummerSlam 2014. Great call there. He also says John Cena was one of the wrestlers to defeat Brock Lesnar in WWE history. Yeah, very few people had defeated him one-on-one. I mean, we look at guys like Triple H, Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins had done it. Not a lot of people can say they defeated Brock Lesnar one-on-one. What years do I consider Super Cena? I think it would be after he returned at the Rumble. Super Cena for me became 2008 to about 2015. I think those were Super Cena years. Because of the way he was booked and the way he was presented, and just, I look at it from this way. 2005, he was still Dr. of Thugonomics. He had just won the WWE title. From 06 to 07, it was like that Marine phase, which, I mean, I guess you could say is Super Cena, but I look at the ring work, and it's like he was having great matches against Shawn, against Edge and Randy. I really enjoyed that. But Super Cena is where it's like over-exhausted pushing him. So when he comes back in 08, that might have been the start, but I think it was around the time where he had the feud with Randy, and they were just flip-flopping the titles, and then from there we saw what he did to the Nexus. We saw what happened with The Miz, and then after that, the Bray Wyatt situation. And I think we kind of fell out of it when it came to the US Open in 2015. Has Cena ever tapped out while getting submitted? He's only tapped out to one man. No Mercy, 2003. I know this. Because your boy has it. John Cena submitted to Kurt Angle. Kurt Angle's the only guy that can say he made John tap out. Eddie Guerrero and... Oh, wait. John Cena was one of the... Oh, okay, I see. Mohammed was continuing his... Okay. That Eddie Guerrero and Cody Rhodes beat John Cena. Yeah, they did. They did. But like I said, other guys like Triple H have done it. Roman Reigns is a big one. Seth Rollins. I mean, plenty of guys have done it. The Big Show did it back in 2002. Kurt Angle did it. And also Brock Lesnar. As in Brock Lesnar made Cena tap? Did he make Cena tap? I don't recall that. I don't recall that. No. Well, John Cena is one of the very few guys who rarely ever gives up. Or I mean, it's literally his gimmick, right? He has it plastered all over his gear, never give up. But, I mean, Brock Lesnar lost to Eddie and Cody. Yeah, no, I get it. Yeah, it took me a second there, because I read it out of order. But yeah, the Eddie and Cody Rhodes had defeated Brock Lesnar, joining the list of individuals we talked about. I would think it's probably less than like 15 people maybe that have beaten Brock one-on-one cleanly. Not talking DQ or count-outs. I mean, like I said, we're looking at Cody, Eddie, and I mean, Eddie technically didn't even beat him clean, but he still beat him one-on-one, so we'll include it. But I got you. It took me a second because I read it out of order, but I got you. I got you. Brock Lesnar debut against Spike was a smart move. Dude, talk about it. Let's talk about it. When Brock Lesnar had debuted, you want to present him as a monster. It was so important to have him presented as such. And so who was the right move? Spike Dudley, who could sell and put Brock on the map. Do you remember how I believe it was during like a hardcore matchup, and he powerbombed Spike Dudley through a trash can. From day one, Brock was always meant to be a monster. Do you think Brock and Cena will wrestle in 2025? I do not. I don't think so. If you mean one-on-one, no. I think it's been done. I don't think we need it. I think it's been done. We don't need it. If you mean in general, Cena will. Brock, I don't know. The jury's still out on him. But in terms of Brock versus Cena, it's not going to happen. Cena versus Hogan is a match I would like to see. And it almost could have happened because they were together in the company from like 03 to 06. Now, granted, I mean, from 03 to 05, he wasn't Cena, like the Cena we know yet. But from 05 to 07, 06, could have happened. Kevin says, I want Lesnar to return, but he's probably hunting and fishing, enjoying that country Minnesota life. And why wouldn't you? He doesn't have to come back. He's a made man. He can just chill. I will see Brock Lesnar coming back to WWE in 2025 once Vince's situation gets cleared up. It very well could. I don't think it's going to happen, but it could. He could make a comeback because we want that Gunther match. Gunther versus Brock would be ridiculous. And I would have Gunther go over and have him take over the mantle of the next big thing. Sanfran5 asks, quick question, but did Brock ever face Batista? Never on the main roster. Never. I don't know about OVW because it was Brock Lesnar and Leviathan, but I know for sure in the WWE they'd never faced off. The closest they ever got to was the Royal Rumble in 2003, where they both were the final four. It was Brock, Batista, The Undertaker, and Kane. That's the closest we ever got to a matchup between them. Aside from that, the Brock Lesnar-Batista matchup never happened. And it could have, because Brock, on his way out in 04, that's when Batista started rising. So had Brock never left, we probably could have got Brock versus Batista somewhere between 05 and like 08, assuming he never leaves. But they never faced. Never faced off. In their primes, man, wouldn't that be something? A prime Brock Lesnar and a prime Batista? Vince's wife is a part of Trump's cabinet, Department of Education. Vince's case will most likely be pardoned. Yeah. Politicians obey billionaires because it's them who fund their campaigns. Right on the head. Nailed it. Nailed it. I think he's in a situation where he's going to be fine. He has the money. He has the political backing. He'll be fine. Just stay away from WWE and the creative. But Vince will be just fine. Crazy how Vince sold all of his WWE shares. I thought it would have never happened. I honestly thought Vince would have had to be dead. I never envisioned him leaving the company. I thought he would have to die first in order to relieve his power in the company. But here we are. All it took was him being a terrible human being. Allegedly. But he had to sell his shares. And now for the first time, a McMahon is not involved. Linda's not involved. Shane is gone. Stephanie doesn't have a role. And Vince sold all his pieces or sold all his shares. Who would have thought that 40 years into WrestleMania, no McMahon? We're going to start winding down here on a live stream following a Monday Night Raw. A lot covered here in today's live stream. We had a little poll. To recap, we do have Seth Rollins fans out there who prefer him just a little bit more than CM Punk. We talked about a lot of things going on. Wait, hold on. I like this question. Do you see Shane showing up on AEW? No, but I would like to. I think that would be crazy. I'm all about creating controversy in the world of professional wrestling because Eric Bischoff did say that controversy creates cash. I would love to see it, but I don't think so. Maybe if the money's right, but I don't know. Kevin says he's the greatest WWE character, not gonna lie, top 5 for sure in terms of pure characters. Taker, Kane, McMahon, all great. Yeah. I think you can make the argument he's the greatest heel of all time. Because think about all the feuds he had. Obviously Austin, The Rock, Triple H, Shawn Michaels. I think Hulk Hogan. I think he's the greatest heel of all time. He was the biggest heel during the biggest boom period. At that point, the Attitude Era. Greatest heel of all time. Only way I see Shane in AEW is if he buys it. One of those WCW moments. Wouldn't that be crazy if he bought like a piece of it? So him and Tony are kind of partners? Because I don't think Tony's giving it up. Something bad would have to happen for him to give it up. I mean, look at what happened to Vince. But Shane in AEW as an owner, whether it's majority or minority, that would be crazy. It would be a WCW moment. And imagine that. Do you think, I don't think so, but do you think, let's say he gets a hold of AEW and is an owner, his history with Triple H and Nick Khan and TKO, do you think that they could work together? Cross promotion? That would be crazy. Mohammed says Shane will come to AEW just to join Jon Moxley's faction. That was a rumor. Because when the Death Riders, at least the BCC at that time, when they first turned heel, Moxley kept saying, like, this isn't your company anymore. And people were thinking, oh, Shane. So it is a possibility. But I just don't think it's going to happen. I just don't think so. Shane can also become owner of Ring of Honor in storyline. And they really ought to separate the two more. Because we keep seeing the Ring of Honor champions on AEW TV. And it's like, why do we see the tag champions and the world champions, but we never see Athena? That's just my 2 cents. I think they should treat Ring of Honor like a developmental brand. Have that be your feeder to develop some of your stars leading into AEW on the main roster. But him as a owner in Ring of Honor certainly would attract a lot more viewership to Ring of Honor. Maybe encourage people to buy that Honor Club subscription. I didn't realize how often McMahon was in the ring fighting against Austin. I recently rewatched the Attitude Era. Actually, 98 to 99 was my favorite version of The Rock when he had a flat top side burn. Yeah, no, I give credit to McMahon too for being able to take those bumps. Corporate Rock was the best in my opinion. I'm more partial to The Rock from like 2000 to 01. That period, that's my favorite Rock. I think that was prime Rock. We're going to go and wrap up here on the live stream on a Monday night, Tuesday morning now. A lot of great conversations here, great interactions. Kevin, my man, always with the great comments and the great involvement in the chat. Always appreciate you and your participation. As well with our new friend here, Mohammed, Sanfran5. Appreciate you always showing up as well. Salvi, you too. A lot of great participation earlier. We had Tyler, Sylvia, Alex was here as well. So shout out to all you guys for continuing to show up for these live streams and continuing giving me the opportunity to entertain you guys as well as just include you in the Wrestle Talk. And if Wrestle Talk wasn't already taken on YouTube, you know I would have taken that as a trademark. But it is. So with that being said, guys, I'm going to go ahead and call it here on a live stream. Appreciate you guys for the love and support that you continue to show my way. Hopefully, get to see you on our Tuesday night live stream where we will talk about who is WWE's Women's Wrestler of the Year. Once again, thank you guys. Appreciate it. With that being said, for all the people, all the new fans, all the new friends that joined us here on the live stream, thank you for stopping by and talking pro wrestling. Of course, my name is Jose Ramos Jr. And with that being said, I'm going to wish you guys a good night, and we'll see you next time.